那直播我这边决定吧。好，我先送那个满装的。好。
Good morning, Professor Knauff 呀，还有我们现在在场很多的这个大家的同学那也有一些线上的嘉宾那大家早安。那我们现在因为已经到了10点，我们就准时开始那我先大概简单的来谈一下我们今天的这个活动那其实今天的活动跟这个在我们底下这个分署长这是我们国土管理署的城乡发展分署的分署长这个的指导之下，那我们来办理今天的这个上午跟下午的2场活动那上午其实是一个国际的交流那但是我们今天有一个共同的主题就是我们知道说中部地区其实这一段时间有蛮多来这个涉及到废弃物的问题那这个会有一些我们未来要处理的一些方向那所以今天有一个共同的主题，其实是我们会涉及到废弃物的处理的议题那早上主要是请到我们来自于德国的这个 Knauff 的教授那来跟我们来谈一下德国的一些经验那各位可以看得到说这个上面有这个非常精彩的简报那主要呢就是要来谈一下德国在废弃物清理这一个部分的相关的运作机制那当然我们也会蛮关心的，就是说从这个区域的角度来说怎么样子去做一个跨域那这个部分可能我们后续可以再做进一步的交流那这个是早上的一个简单的介绍。那下午呢我们其实也是我们过去这几个礼拜也跟分署这边讨论非常非常多啦那从一开始我们要处理的是废弃物那当然也这个把废弃物相关的议题稍微盘整了一下那下午的第一个我们会去处理到废弃物那虽然说是废弃物，但是最重要的其实是所谓的邻避设施那邻避设施里面其中一个就是我们俗称就是焚化炉或者是掩埋场这样子的一个设施的问题所以我们会讨论到选址以及这个区域的这个跨地方自治团体的一个这个合作治理的问题那第二块就是其实也是最近大家在这个乱了一阵子的土方的问题那这个是我们下午会去处理到的几个议题那我再跟各位这个补充介绍一下刚才我们看到我们这个团队的核心成员那个刘耀华老师也来到现场好，那我也顺便跟各位大概也介绍一下我们这个系上或团队的几位老师那包含等一下这个国际交流的主持人李长业老师然后还有后面有张玉端老师跟尤正玉老师好，那这大概这个因为我这5分钟的时间大概就是到这边那就是跟各位的我们希望透过今天的交流那有一个早上有一个国际不同国家的一些发展的经验，那到了下午呢，我们这个着重在台湾的经验来做进一步的分享然后来做进一步的讨论那这个是我们今天办理这场活动最主要的这个用意啦那也希望透过彼此的交流跟合作那这个我们有更多的能够产生出一些共识或者说产生出一些后续我们可以再进一步来精进的地方好，那我们这个就进入到第2个 part 第2个 part 其实我就先把这个主持棒交给长业老师好不好我们请长业老师来这个介绍一下我们今天的主讲者那这个 Knauff 教授
会长还有在座的各位老师各位参与者还有线上的各位大家早安这个第7部的直播间比来好毕业抱歉
变了
我先简单介绍一下Knauff教授因为我会接这个介绍的工作，也是他是我自己的教授了。那他来自耶拿大学，那他的专长在公法律为主，那主要是强调在公法，就是行政法跟宪法。当然，我们这一次请他来，会特别从他以往他其实在宪法行政法的一个框架底下，同时也有在做环 环境法跟能源法的一个研究跟教学，所以这次特别请他来去谈，在德国现在当然在德国来讲是一直有这样的一个讨论，那最近也是因为台湾有这样的一个状况，所以我们特别重视这种有关于废弃物的清理，跟尤其是从法律层面来讲，怎么样去架构这样一个废弃物清理的一个制度，特别请他谈从德国的角度去谈地方之间怎么样，跨县市之间、跨乡镇之间如何有这样一个合作的情形。那教授他本身当然现在是耶拿大学的法律的教授，他本人是来自于大学毕业于福兹堡大学，中文好像是这样翻，维尔兹堡大学，然后在那边拿到博士，然后同时也做完德国的教授，必须还要再写一本教授升等论文，这个资格论文，然后他就在那边做了教授升等论文后，后来在2013年开始在耶拿大学服务了，那后来也是在2016年的时候到耶拿当他的学生，然后到博士毕业这样子。好，那我做一个简单的介绍，然后也特别去请他说明一下德国目前的状况。那我先做一个背景的说明，因为同样德国跟台湾一样，会有在废弃物的清除处理上面会碰到地方自治的一个问题啊，所以等一下那教授除了会讲德国同样会讲德国联邦层级的法规之外，他也会引入一些德国因为耶拿是在 Turingen， 所以他也会讲一下图林根邦的一些法规啊，就是因为同样会有这种地方法规的一个影响，好，所以我就简单说一下，等一下Knauff教授的演讲的大致内容。那等一下Knauff教授主要会用英文演讲，那就全部都是英文，中间当然就不会有翻译，然后但是到综合讨论区的时候，当然如果需要我可以帮忙翻译，那也欢迎大家可以提出一些问题，做一些交流。好，那我的简单的介绍跟说明就到这边，谢谢大家。那我们现在是不是就直接
对，我们就请Knauff可以给我们做一些
好，
那我们就这个掌声来欢迎。
So, is this enough, or do I need the other microphone? It's okay? So, you can all hear me? Okay, great. So, good morning, ni hao, and especially for you, good morning. It's a great pleasure for me to be here again. Oh, yes, so, thanks. This is important, yeah. Okay, I'm very happy to be here again. It's a great pleasure for me, not only to meet Professor Li again, who joined me a long time in Jena, but also to meet the colleagues and students and return to Taichung as well. Okay, today I was asked to talk about a topic which is not totally far away from me, but which I usually do not deal with. And this is landfills. Yeah, and there are very few legal specialists for landfills in Germany, especially in German universities, in law at least. Yeah, maybe it may be different in other subjects, but nevertheless, it's part of environmental law, and so I feel more or less able to try to explain to you what we are doing with that topic in Germany. Nevertheless, it's a very special topic, but I understand it's important, not only in Germany, but also here, and that was why Professor Li asked me to talk about that topic today. Okay, no? Okay, technical challenges. Okay, now we got it. Thanks. Yeah, here we are. Okay, so let's start with a little overview over the law which we have to deal with. Of course, our starting point is not a legal one because The best landfill, of course, is one we do not need in the end. Yeah, and so our German law clearly states that we should be a circular economy. So without waste and nothing we have to just put somewhere and there it will stay forever. Yeah, the law we have in Germany decades ago was called waste management law, and by the time it was changed to Circular Economy Act. Yeah, and by this you can already see the general idea of German law. So of course we produce a lot of waste, yeah, but we don't want it and we don't like it, and so in fact we try to avoid needing more landfills than necessary. Yeah, so this is our starting point. So the general idea, of course, would be that there should be as little non-recyclable waste as possible. Yeah, I suppose you have that idea too. Maybe in your law, at least in your political thinking. But we all know it is impossible to recycle everything, and also, of course, you can burn parts of the waste, but also this is not always possible. So there are not too little parts of waste which has to be disposed somehow. Yeah, and this is what we are talking about today, although due to our understanding of waste law, recycling is much more important. Yeah, so nevertheless, we need waste disposals, and so of course we have to deal with the environmental risks, yeah, connected with that. Of course, you cannot just take any kind of waste, put it somewhere in the landscape, and hope everything will be fine. It will not, definitely not. Yeah, and so you have to make sure that this waste you have to dispose in the end cannot cause any more damages. Yeah, and for this, in fact, we have special legal requirements for landfills, and one special thing about Germany, of course, is we are part of the European Union, and this means we always have to think about two levels of the law. Yeah, that's different from here, so you are more or less free to decide what to do. We are not, at least not so far, because the European Union is one of the core actors in environmental policy and law. And this means when we make laws in Germany, in many parts of the law, we always have to think about the legal setting made by the EU, and we have to comply with that. Yeah, and so even if someone in Germany had a better idea, which is not so often the case, yeah, then nevertheless we just could not say, okay, let's change the system. If there is European law, we have to comply with. And in waste management, there's one important directive. It's the directive on waste, and yes, and this directive on waste includes general principles and requirements for how to deal with waste. Nevertheless, especially for landfills, there is not so much inside. Yeah, some general requirements, yes, but not details. So, in fact, in this case, we are quite well, more or less free, at least, how to deal with the problem. And in Germany, we have this Circular Economy Act dealing with waste management and, of course, also landfills. And this is because this is a federal law. As you probably know, Germany is not only part of the European Union, but also a federal state. Yeah. So so you have the national level and the subnational level, which is the local level, I think. Yeah. But in Germany, there's one level in between. That's the state level. It's similar to the US system. Yeah. Although it works totally different. Yeah. But the organization. So, and of course, all those states, Professor Lee already mentioned, my university is in Thuringia, and therefore we just use the Thuringian example, but the situation in other states of Germany is not so different. So on this level, we always have also laws. Yeah. And in this case, because in federal legislation, the most important aspects are already in this act. Therefore, we only have an implementation act for the Circular Economy Act. And that's why we do not really have to think about that anymore, because this is just local specialties. Nevertheless, to understand the German system, you should know that there is the state level as well. And there's one special act which is called German Landfill Directive, in German Deponieverordnung, and if you see that strange abbreviation, it's about that. Yeah. So, and for us, most important today is the Circular Economy Act, this WG, and the Landfill Directive Deponieverordnung. Yeah. So when you see that later on, try to remember where we are. Yeah. Okay. So yes, and also, of course, the Waste Management Law, or the Circular Economy Act, cannot completely rule everything around waste. Yeah, this would be too much, and I'm sure it's the same situation you have here in Taiwan. And therefore, of course, there are some general legal requirements, for instance, from emission control law, but what we especially will meet later on, administrative procedural law, because we are talking about administrative procedure. Yeah, when we plan a landfill, it just has to be organized, and what is important too is water law. Yeah, of course, the Circular Economy Act tries to make sure that that especially the groundwater will not be damaged or whatsoever by landfills. Nevertheless, of course, the quality of the water we want to keep is not defined in waste law, but in water law, and therefore this material is quite important in practice as well. Not for us today, because this is one of the many aspects we have to deal with. And finally, Professor Lee asked me also to say some words about administrative organization law, because landfills are quite big structures. Yeah, and not all the communities in Germany are big enough to have such a structure for themselves, and they just don't need it. And so you may get the idea, okay, how can we work together on an administrative level? Yeah, not only by planning, but also by operating such a structure. Yeah, and therefore we will talk a little bit also about administrative organization law. Okay. But at first, we will start with some general aspects of waste management law. And, I think many of you are specialists, so you, of course, know a lot, but some of you may not be. And therefore, I decided just to start from the beginning so that those of you who know everything about Taiwanese landfill law nevertheless can see where there might be differences even in the starting points. Yeah. So, and the first thing we should note is there is a legal definition of the term landfill in our Circular Economy Act, and this provision says landfills within the meaning of the present Act shall be disposal installations for the storage of waste above ground, so-called above ground landfills, or below ground landfills. Landfills shall also include companies' own internal waste disposal facilities or waste storage at which a producer carries out waste disposal at the production site. Okay, I think for us, the second sentence is not so important, but the first one, I suppose that's more or less the same understanding you have here, right? Yeah, okay. So it's just, landfill is just a place where you put your waste forever. Yeah, this to make it short. Okay, and of course there are also some basic obligations for waste disposal, and here, per Section 15 of the Circular Economy Act states producers or holders of waste that is not recovered shall be obliged to dispose such waste unless otherwise provided, and so on. Yeah. So this means be obliged to dispose. Yeah. Just don't throw your waste, your rubbish into the forest. Yeah, this is meant by that. Yeah, so you are responsible as a producer or holder of waste to deal with that waste responsibly. Yeah, and responsibly in the context of German environmental law also always means just don't do anything with that, but do exactly what you are expected. Yeah, and so this means in the end you have to bring your rubbish to the landfill. Yeah, and so therefore it is clear that we need such structures. And of course, I mean, we talk about German law, and German law is always very detailed, yeah. And so this provision states also waste shall be disposed of in such a manner that the public interest is not adversely affected. An adverse effect shall be deemed to have occurred, in particular if human health is adversely affected, animals and plants are endangered, water bodies or soil are detrimentally affected, detrimental environmental effects are caused by air pollution or noise, the aims or principles of other requirements of regional planning, or the interests of nature conservation, landscape management, and urban development are not considered, or 6, public safety and public order are otherwise threatened or disturbed. Well, I think this is not very surprising, and at least those aims until are probably all of them. It's the same you have here, right? Would you agree? Yeah. Okay. Okay. What you may not have yet, at least, we will see. There is another section here stating the deposit of municipal waste on landfills may be a maximum of 10% of the total volume of municipal waste by weight at latest from 1st of January 2035 onwards. This is quite new in our law as well, And I do not know if you have something similar here in your law as well. Of course, this is not really relevant for our main topic today, because we want to find out how to deal with landfills. Nevertheless, of course, it clearly states that the need of landfills in the future should be much lower than it is has been in the past and is now. Yeah, and as I said in the very beginning, our aim is not to have disposable waste at all, but to become a circular economy. And by this, I do not know if it will work, and we will see after 2035, yeah? But by this, the legislator at least states clearly that only a very small amount of at least that kind of waste should be in the end put to a landfill, and all the rest needs to be recycled or used somehow else. Yeah, and of course this will be a challenge in the future, not only for the municipalities but especially for the producers of many goods. Yeah, because to get there, you have to make sure that those products are recyclable. And in fact, in our product law, but this is another topic than ours today, there are a lot of provisions how to build products, what is allowed, what is not allowed. And you may have already heard about the eco-design regulation, formerly eco-design directive in Europe. And in this act, that's an EU act, there are many provisions about how to develop products. Sorry?
So this is from the EU?
No, this is our national law. But to make this work, we of course need the European standards, because otherwise it would be impossible to have only those 10% of waste to be disposed. Yeah. So at first we need to make sure that products are made in a way so that when they don't work anymore or we cannot need them anymore, that they have to be disposed. Yeah. Otherwise, the system won't work. But I'm just trying to tell you that those parts of the law, yeah, product law and waste management law, in the end work together. But we have only here, of course, the waste management law. Yeah. So it was just something I wanted to explain to you. Okay. So, and also there is a rule stating for purposes of disposal, waste may only be treated, stored, or landfilled in the plants or installation authorized, therefore, so those waste disposal installations, notwithstanding the first sentence, treatment of waste for disposal shall also be permitted in installations that primarily serve a purpose other than waste disposal and that require license in accordance and so on. Yeah. So the general idea of the law is that when you need to dispose waste, yeah, then you have to do it properly. Yeah, and properly means use a landfill, at least for final disposal. Yeah, and we do not need to talk about the other aspects today. Nevertheless, the final disposal is on the landfill. Yeah, and so you cannot choose. Yeah, you cannot just dig a hole in your garden and say, okay, I will use that for my waste for the next 50 years. Yeah. This is not allowed, yeah. But you need to use those special installations, which is reasonable because when you plan and construct and operate them properly, then you can be at least more or less sure that nature is not endangered by that construction, whereas when you put your rubbish in a hole in your garden, you can be more or less sure something bad will happen there earlier or later. Yeah? Okay, so it is clear you have to, when those waste which cannot be avoided, in the end has to be put into an official landfill instruction. Yeah? So, and of course, to make sure that there are no dangers, we have detailed requirements for those landfills in the law as well. We will talk about that later on. But first, we need to talk a bit about responsibilities. Yeah? Who is responsible, yeah, for that? And waste, well, who is producing waste? Well, all of us, all the time. Yes, you and me and all the others here, the industry, yeah, but not so much the state, yeah. I mean, they produce some waste too, but not so much, yeah. But most of the waste is made by private people, companies, and so on, yeah. And but of course, if you would ask us to deal responsibly with our waste, some of us would really try, but many would say, okay, I just drop it somewhere and it's not my problem anymore, yeah? So may someone else care, yeah? I did not mean someone personally. Okay, and so as a society, as a state, you need to decide how to deal with that situation. And this is not so different from other parts of environmental law. So you can address private actors, of course, yeah, people, companies, and so on. And you may make provisions to tell them how to behave, how not to behave. You may have sanctions for misbehave and so on. But in the end, this will not solve your problem, yeah, because there will always be somebody who is not acting as expected, yeah. And therefore, our legislator has decided that the final responsibility for waste management lies with the public disposal authorities. Yeah, so it's a public task, a task for, well, the state somehow. But as we have seen in Germany, the state is quite big, and we have several parts of the state. We have the federal level, we have the state level, and we also have the municipal level. Yeah, so at least 3, sometimes more. Yeah, and so you have to decide. And of course, dealing with local waste problems is nothing which can reasonably done by the federal or the state level. Yeah, it's too high, and their politics is made. Yeah, so the federal level decides whether we send warships close to Iran to help oil tankers, yeah, to leave the region. Yeah, but not the question what should be done with waste produced near or in the, around the city of Jena. Yeah, this does not make any sense, and therefore the legislator decided that the public disposal authorities are usually independent cities and countries. This term independent cities is a bit strange, I know, and but in Germany we have cities which are part of other municipal structures, and some and others, the bigger ones, are independent. Yeah, this is only meant by this, and the other cities are part of those counties. Yeah, so so this, and anyway, it's the local level. Yeah, to put it easy. Yeah, it's the local level, but not every single village, because they are too small and they couldn't deal with the problem as well. Okay, so what should those public disposal authorities do? This is stated in Section 20 of the Circular Economy Act. The public disposal providers shall recover in accordance with and so on, or dispose waste from private households in their area that has been generated and has been made available to them, as well as waste for disposal from other areas of origin. So it's clear that those public disposal authorities are responsible more or less for all the waste. Yeah, there are some exemptions for industry, but lot of the waste is within this section. So the counties and cities have to deal with the problem. Yeah, so they cannot give it to someone else. And of course, how to do that is a question which is very important, not only here, but also in Germany. And there are, in the end, two ways to do that. The first way, which is usually done by the big cities and bigger counties, is just to care for themselves. Yeah. Next to each big city in Germany, you will find some landfill, of course. Yeah. No doubt about that. But especially in the countryside, rural areas, the counties may be quite big. But there are not so many people. Yeah, it's like in the mountain regions here. Yeah, although we do not have such big mountains, but nevertheless, there are parts of Germany where you have a lot of space. Yeah, and for them, it may not really make sense to operate a landfill for themselves. Yeah, they just do not need it, and it also may be too expensive for them. Yeah, because planning, building, operating is not for free. Yeah, you need a lot of money for that, and this means taxpayers' money, and especially on the local level. There is not so much money in Germany. Yeah, I mean, we are still quite a rich country, but the money is not on the local level. Yeah, but the federation has money, more or less. Yeah, and the state level has money, but for the communities, it's sometimes really hard, and they have a lot of expenses for social reasons. Yeah, so they have to support all the poor people and pay for immigrants and things like that. Yeah, and so we really have a problem at the moment in Germany with lacking money on the local level. Yeah, and so when you think about developing a new landfill today on the local level, this kind of self-care, yeah, to execute that task by yourself may be not so attractive. But instead, you may think about how to work together with other communities for that reason. Yeah, and this is reasonable not only for the reason of cost, but also because if you do not have so many people, yeah, in your county, you just do not have enough waste to fill a landfill within the next 50 years, and of course you do not plan for 1,000 years or so. Yeah, and in Germany, we have in the law, in state law, in this case, yeah, it had nothing to do with federal law. Therefore, when you search for it in the federal law database, or especially in the Circular Economy Act, you will not find anything about that. But in state law, we have provisions which make intermunicipal cooperation possible. Yeah, and I think this is quite an important part of the state law because it helps the local entities to fulfill their tasks by working together. Yeah, and this is possible in nearly all fields of law. And but unfortunately, the forms of intermunicipal cooperation are not the same all over Germany. They are similar, yes. Yeah, but they are not exactly the same, and this makes things from an outside perspective a little bit difficult. Yeah, I use the example of Thuringia because my university is there, but of course this is you could have a look to the state law of Bavaria or Baden-Württemberg or other states as well, and you would find rules, but they may be a bit different. Yeah, but nevertheless, I think just to give you an impression, this will do, and those of you who are interested would need to do some research. 16 state laws, yeah, screen it and find it and deal with it, yeah. But nevertheless, just to get an idea for you, which kinds of that cooperation we have. So, and our Thuringian law is quite clear about that. We have a provision, section 2 of the Thuringian law on municipal cooperation. Yeah, you see there's a special law for that, stating for municipal cooperation, municipal working groups may be established, special purpose agreements concluded, and special purpose associations and joint municipal institutions under public law may be formed. Yeah, so you see a big choice. Yeah, but what you do not see yet is what is meant by this. But luckily, our state legislator helps us and explains what he means. So, and he says municipal working groups and special purpose agreements. Yeah, this was the first two ways how to work together. Do not create new legal entities. This means, in the end, 2 municipalities or 3 or 4 just decide we will work together, make some treaty or whatsoever, yeah, some agreement, and just fulfill our tasks together. But each of those municipalities still is responsible for fulfilling its own tasks. Okay, then the second possibility is special purpose associations. Those are public law corporations. Yeah, it's a corporation now, and they manage their affairs within the framework of law under their own responsibility. Yeah, so this is much more intense already, and you have a way to deal with the challenges by that corporation. Okay, and finally, and this is very important, in Germany you find this very often in very many fields of local politics. We have joint municipal institutions under public law. This is an independent enterprise in the legal form of an institution under public law, which is supported by several municipal local authorities. Yeah, and you find this very often in Germany, in fact, because it's flexible on the one hand, on the other hand, it's working very well. Yeah, and so I just wanted to show you those ways how to cooperate on the local level, because I heard before that here in Taiwan you have sometimes problems the local entities do not really want to work together or cannot, or something like that at least. And so maybe, I mean, of course you do not have that law, but maybe it may help you to think about those established forms of municipal cooperation in Germany, and maybe you just can take over or try some of those ideas. Maybe something fits for you as well. Yeah. Of course, I do not know Taiwanese communal law, but as long as you have freedom for the local entities how to deal with each other, I think it can be an opportunity to work together in some of those ways. Okay, what else can you do? Of course, you can also, instead of working together, yeah, so this is a totally different approach. Instead of working together, you can also buy services from another municipality. Yeah, so when you do not want to, for whatever reason, operate, for instance, a landfill together with other municipalities, but next to where you are, there is already a big landfill operated by another community. Of course, you might think about, okay, just procure the necessary services. This means you buy those services by contract-based, yeah, but of course, as usually, you will have to pay for that. Yeah, this is a disadvantage, but it's expensive anyway. The only question is, are you responsible or are you just paying? Yeah, and so. Also in waste management, at least, this takes place regularly, and but the great disadvantage is, of course, in this case, either you do that within the framework of intermunicipal cooperation we have been talking before, or which may be more important in this case, you do it in compliance with public procurement law. Yeah, but believe me, public procurement law is not fun. Yeah, I mean, you can spend your life in public procurement law as a scientist. Yeah, but for the entities, it's not so easy. Yeah. Nevertheless, it's a possibility to how to deal with the problem, but you cannot just go to your next landfill and say, hey, I have here I have 100 euros, yeah, I give it to you, and there is all my waste. Please care for it. Yeah, this of course will not work. Okay, so in general, these are the organizational aspects I thought which may be interesting for you. If you have questions about this, of course we can deal with that later on. We will see. Okay, now let's return really to waste law and landfills. So, the first step to deal with landfills, of course, is that you have to plan them. Yeah, there are no natural landfills or something like that. Yeah, landfills are always artificial structures, and so you have to think. The first thing you have to think about is where to put it. Yeah, and of course this is a big problem because when you ask the people, do you want a landfill next to your house? I cannot imagine that anyone would say, yes, of course, I was waiting for that. Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, because that's not great. Yeah, to have it next to your door. And of course, you also cannot build those structures in the cities and villages, yeah, because it's not healthy in the end. Yeah, but also you cannot just put it somewhere in the nature, because of course we want to save our nature. We have damaged and destroyed so much of it already, and so we have to find places where we can put it, so that it does not really cause more problems, at least than necessary, yeah, and unavoidable. So, and the first step you would probably think of is regional planning. Yeah, in Germany we have several levels of planning, land planning, and I suppose it's the same here. Yeah. And in the end, there is one federal land planning approach, but this is not so important, and especially not for our topic. But the important land planning takes place on state level, yeah, and below. Yeah, and so probably you would expect that there should be a rule in our Regional Planning Act about landfills, but strangely enough, there is none. Yeah, at least none which you can really work with. But instead, we have just some special rules dealing with the regional planning problem. But they only say, well, the questions of regional planning have to be taken into account when you try to plan a landfill. And this is there's one rule in the Circular Economy Act, yeah, but it only says, well, you have to think about that. Well, you read that and do not know anything more. Yeah, and there's also one rule in the Raumordnungsgesetz, the Regional Planning Act, but this does not really help us as well. It states, when granting permits for the construction and operating of publicly accessible waste disposal facilities by private entities in accordance with the provisions of the Federal Emissions Control Act, the objectives of regional planning must be observed, and the principle of regional planning and other regional planning requirements must be taken into account. Well, I suppose all of you would say, yes, of course. Yeah, and I would say so too. The problem is our landfills do not fall under this provision. Yeah, and so in general, yes, of course, we have to take those things, the regional planning aspects into account, but this does not really help us to take decisions. Apart from, of course, you cannot plan a landfill in the middle of an airport or something like that. Yeah, but no one would do so anyway, and so. This is not so helpful in the end. It only shows that, of course, there are some places, yeah, natural reserve areas or cities or industry places, yeah, where you cannot do so, but all the rest of the country would be free. But of course, this is nothing which really helps us, and therefore our legislator has developed a so-called waste management plan. And this is an important instrument, yeah, because this is very special and deals with the question how to avoid waste. This is included in that plan too, but also what to do with the waste when it's there. And therefore, of course, our landfills are included in that plan as well. So this is a very important instrument, and because I just don't know, do you have something here too or not?
Suppose we do federal national government.
On the national level, yeah.
At the national level, we do have the regional entity.
Mm.
And it's assigned by the national government, say to central Taiwan, to southern Taiwan,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
northern Taiwan, for but it's not waste management per se.
Okay, yeah.
It's an entity out of the national government.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that, we don't have the regional government.
Yeah, I know, yeah,
So
yeah.
we only have city and county government.
Mm.
They are directly in charge of waste management.
Ah, okay.
They have to draw up their own plan.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so this is a bit a difference, in fact, because here we have a central planning instrument, and this is really helpful because in this situation, in fact, every city will probably say, okay, I care for my own problems, but please keep all the rest outside. Yeah, and so in fact, this you can avoid this by in Taiwan. You need to have it on the national level. In fact, yeah.
Maybe when the national government was involved in the regional affairs,
Mm.
they into the waste management section, they spend a lot of money on incinerators,
Mm.
not landfill.
Yeah.
Landfill is mostly local affairs,
Mm.
but the incinerators, there are 16 incinerators
Yeah.
here right now in Taiwan, mostly subsidized by the national government.
Mm.
So they spend the money, and then it was operated by the private entity.
Mm.
It was built by the public
Yeah.
sector. Mostly, the money mostly from the national government.
Mm, okay, yeah. This would be one step further, yeah. So this plan, it's really just it's planning, yeah. But it's not. We talked before regional planning, which is for everything, yeah. In regional planning in Germany, you plan infrastructures, you plan natural reserves, you plan airports and whatever, yeah. And so this is a special planning instrument for waste. Yeah, and in fact, it's quite helpful because it helps us to deal with the problem, and in fact, if you go into German law, German public law especially, you will find a lot of planning instruments. Yeah, so our colleague may help to discover. Yeah, those world of planning, because when you study city planning, you have a lot to do with that too. Yeah. Okay. So let's go on. So those waste management plans are really the core management planning instrument in Germany. Yeah, and it is defined or explained in section 30 of the of the Circular Economy Act, and it states the federal states draw up waste management plans for their territory based on supra-local considerations. Yeah, so it's not the national level, but it's state level. And state level in Germany means about the size of Taiwan. Yeah, Taiwan is about as big as one of the bigger German states. Yeah, and so here it would be the national level. Yeah, and in Germany, of course, you use state level because for whole of Germany it wouldn't make sense. Yeah, to make plans like that. Nevertheless, it's central. It's not local. Yeah, and this is important because state governments, of course, would think about where to put what structures. Yeah, and although every city, every county would probably say, okay, we do not want to have the big structures, yeah, because we do not like that. The state could say, okay, but we need some really big structures, and it has to be put somewhere. And when you take the state of Baden-Württemberg, where we live, which is about the same size as Taiwan, it wouldn't make sense to put all the landfills in the southwest, yeah, because so you would have to carry waste for hundreds of kilometers, yeah, and this does not make sense, of course. And also, of course, you must make sure that those waste management plans of the states fit together somehow. Yeah, although there's no common waste management plans of several states, but nevertheless, the German states, well, they have common borders, and there are municipalities on both sides of the border, so the waste is there anyway, and of course, therefore, the law states that federal states shall coordinate their waste management plans with each other. And very important in planning in German law, public participation. Yeah, this is not funny, not at all, because when you ask the people, do you want a landfill here or other structures for waste management? Yes, exactly. That's what people do not say. Yeah, but of course it is important, not because of ordinary people, yeah, they just say I don't like it, yeah, but especially for to include the view and the knowledge of environmental protection associations, yeah. So if there are places with very special animals or plants or so, usually the states should know, but sometimes they don't. Yeah, and so you can use that public participation to just get information. Yeah, and therefore we have that very often. It's as I said, when you have to organize those public participation, you will not like it. Yeah, but nevertheless, it's important and to include the people's view, and it also, of course, can help to get acceptance. Yeah, because when you explain things to the people and say, okay, somewhere we need it, and on this place the damage is as little as possible, at least most people will probably understand and say, okay, yes, so we will not do anything against it. Okay, so but still, I mean, we are talking about German law, yeah. We cannot just start now with our construction, but instead we need something else, and this is planning approval. I have already learned that you do not have planning approval here, but you use other kinds of allowances. Therefore, I just try to give you an overview about our dealing with those things, but maybe we can go a bit deeper into it in the discussion. Okay, of course, the first thing you have to do is to explore suitable locations. As I said, you cannot put a landfill somewhere in the landscape. Yeah, this is not useful, and to make this possible, the law states owners and beneficial owners of land must tolerate representatives of the competent authority, and public waste disposal agencies may enter properties, with the exception of residential properties, to investigate suitable locations or landfills and publicly accessible waste disposal facilities, and may carry out surveys, soil and groundwater investigations, and similar measures. the intention to enter properties and carry out such measures must be communicated to the owners and beneficial owners of the properties in good time in advance. Well, the second sentence, I mean, should be clear, but the first one is important because the state does not own, or also the municipalities, does not own so much land in Germany. The land is owned usually by private people, companies, whoever, and so this clause makes it possible that public servants, when preparing the decision, could go to some places, have a look around, if this plot of land really is good for for a landfill and things like that. And if this did not exist, this provision, the owner of the property could tell those public servants just to go away. Yeah, and because it is necessary. Yeah. Also to use private land for landfills, we make it possible that the authorities can send their people to have a look around. Yeah, so this is important, although maybe of course not very surprising. Yeah, because otherwise the system just wouldn't work. There are also always needs to be an environmental impact assessment, yeah, and this is something you have here too, I know, yeah, and so this is not so different from what we do in Germany, and of course this is part of the planning process as well. So, and then the first question you always have to answer when you think about planning approval in Germany is the necessity. And the rules for that procedure are not only in the Circular Economy Act, but also in the Administrative Procedure Act. Yeah, so you have to put those together, which is not so easy. However, in the Section 35 of the Circular Economy Act, there is one provision. Unfortunately, I forgot to print paragraph 2, but I will read it to you, stating the construction and operation of facilities in which waste disposal is carried out, as well as any significant changes to such facility or their operation, require approval in accordance with the provisions of the Federal Emission Control Act. This is the rule, but, and as I said, unfortunately I forgot just to write down the second paragraph. The second paragraph states the construction and operations of landfills, so our topic, again, require planning approval by the competent authority. Yeah, this is a bit shortened, but this is the rule. So, in general, for any kind of waste disposal structures, you need allowance under the Federal Emission Control Act. But for landfills, you need a planning approval procedure and decision. Yeah. So this is once more, the second paragraph would be the construction and operation of landfills require planning approval by the competent authority. Yeah. So sorry for forgetting. So obviously it was already too late in the evening when I when I drafted that part. Okay. So and so usually we will need such a planning approval procedure. Okay, how does that work? I just give you an overview, and so at first the plan for what should be realized for the structure needs to be submitted to the so-called hearing authority by the project developer. This is the first step. Yeah, of course you have to start the procedure somehow, and you do not start by just sitting on a table together and start discussing what could we do, but the municipality responsible has to draw up a plan and give this to the so-called hearing authorities. Yeah, and this is, you see it, that's the abbreviation VPVG, which is the Administrative Procedure Act, yeah, General Administrative Law, but in the Deponieverordnung, the landfill regulation, yeah, you find special provisions which you also have to deal with, and so you have to put those two laws together. So what's happening next? There will be some official statements requested by the hearing authority. This is from other authorities, yeah, the water authority and transport authority and so on. And also simultaneously this plan will be displayed in the affected municipalities. Yeah, so you have a place where that landfill shall be built later on, yeah, and around that place, of course, there are a lot of municipalities, yeah, and in all those municipalities, this plan has to be made known to the people, yeah. So, and of course, they have to know it. Therefore, there need to be an announcement, and after that, people can go to where this plan is displayed, or have a look in the internet, yeah, where you can find it usually too. And if you have any objections, for instance, oh, I just discovered this is my property, yeah, or there is a very a special bird living, yeah, or maybe you say, I'm against waste, I don't like it, yeah, of course this will not be successful, yeah, so whoever has whatever objections can make them here and send them to the hearing authority within a certain time, of course, yeah, so you cannot wait for 2 years, and after that, when everything is done, you go to the authority and say, by the way, I know why it's not allowed, yeah, this would be not okay, but within a certain time, you can tell why you do not agree. Okay, also, there must be a cross-border participation of authorities and the public according to waste law. And in the end, or not in the end, but after that, and this is really hard, there is a discussion meeting. Yeah. So all the people who did not agree are invited, and and then there's a big discussion about all those objections. Yeah, and hopefully. Oh, okay, thanks. Hopefully you can solve in that discussion all the problems. Usually, of course, it doesn't work, yeah, but at least some problems can be solved, and therefore it makes sense. The aim is also to clarify facts and balance interests, yeah. Clarifying fact is important for us here as well. Yeah, balancing of interests, well, is difficult in our case. This is more for instance, when you want to build a road or a railway, yeah, then of course there are people living next to that, and they say, okay, that's too much noise for me, and you can help them by forcing the company to pay for better noise protection or something like that. Yeah, and usually by this the problem will be solved in the end. Yeah, but here, of course, well, balancing of interests could only mean that I do not want my garden, to be a part of a landfill. So you could make a deal to buy that land or something like that. Yeah. Okay. If necessary, after this procedure, there can be amendments of this plan. And then this is the final step of this first part of the procedure. There will be a statement of the hearing authority, and the procedure is given to the planning or approval authority, which is a higher authority. Yeah. So, and this planning. This planning authority, approval authority, will take the final decision. Yeah, and this includes everything which has to be done to make it work. And so this is quite a complex decision, but in the end, from a legal point of view, it's just an administrative act. So this is easy, at least. Yeah, and so under certain conditions, alternatively, there may be just a planning permission, but usually when you want to build a new landfill, this is not enough. Yeah. Okay. So, and finally, this, of course, this decision is announced and delivered by the public authority. Okay, what there are also some special requirements for this procedure in waste law, and one is in section 36 of the Circular Economy Act, stating the planning approval decision and so on may only be issued, or the planning permission only be granted if, one, it is ensured that the public interest is not impaired. In particular, no danger can be caused to the protected assets referred to in section 15 and so on. Precautions against impairment and the protected interests referred to in 15.2 are taken primarily by means of structural, operational, or organizational measures in accordance with the state of art, and energy is used sparingly and efficiently. And second, there are no known facts that give rise to concerns about the reliability of the operator or the persons responsible for the construction, management, or supervision of the operation, or for the aftercare of the landfill. To put it something? Here we are, sorry. So in the end, this what I just read to you, sorry for being late here, just in the end states there must be no dangers, yeah, from this landfill, and especially in the Deponieverordnung, the landfill regulation. There are some additional requirements stating the planning approval decision and so on. In this decision, the competent authority shall specify at least the following for landfill: name and place of residence or registered office of the project sponsor and the landfill operator. Of course, you have to know who is there, but this is not special. Then the landfill the statement that a planning approval or plan approval will be granted and the legal basis. Then important, the landfill class, because we have several classes of landfills. We will not go into that in detail, just for your information. The name of the landfill site, location details, and very important, the types of waste, specifying the waste codes and waste descriptions in accordance with the annex to the waste list regulation. Yeah, because there's a lot of waste and of different waste, and depending on what waste you put somewhere, you have to care about different things. Yeah, and so this must be made clear in advance, of course. Yeah, so not that afterwards you find out that you have a wonderful planning decision, but unfortunately all the dangers realize because you forgot something important. Yeah, this must not happen, and therefore here the landfill regulation is quite clear. Okay. When you got that planning approval decision, it has many effects. They are again in the Public Procedure, Administrative Procedure Act. They of course have a permissive effect, which means that this planning approval decision is some kind of permission or allowance. Yeah, so when you have it, you may build your structure. And what is very important and very helpful under German law, those decisions have a so-called concentration effect. This means that you do not need any other permissions. Yeah, you need only this one. But of course, all the relevant law is put into that procedure. Yeah, so the planning approval authority does not only think about waste management law, but also about natural conservation law, water law, and so on. Yeah, and but nevertheless, you only need this one decision, and this is really helpful because otherwise there would be the danger that if you need 3 allowances, you get 2 and won't get the third, and after that you cannot realize your projects. Put a lot of money in the preparation, and in the end it doesn't work. We do not want that, and because of that, our legislator decided in this very general act, the Administrative Procedure Act, that this decision has this so-called concentration effect. And of course, it's legally binding. Yeah, so there's no chance to get away from this decision again. Of course, there is you can go to court, yeah, because as I said, it's just an administrative act, but at least after the court says everything is okay, yeah, you can be sure that nothing can happen anymore to that decision. So, and yes, finally there's an exemptive effect as well. And what is important as well, of course you want to start with realizing that project. Yeah, and therefore, and sometimes it may be necessary to get the private land. Yeah, of course, if there is some farmer who is not happy to give his fields away, yeah, then you have to, nevertheless, you have to make sure to get them, and therefore the planning approval decision has a preliminary effect of expropriation. Yeah, and so you can take away the land from this owner. Yeah, of course you have to give him money. Yeah, so it's not for free. Yeah.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
Do that before you start the process, or after you get a permission.
After the this is the consequence of the permission. Yeah, and this.
You get a right to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To buy the land. To buy the property.
Well, yeah, no, you don't buy it. The farmer is taken the land away. In fact. Yeah, but of course he gets money for it, nevertheless.
X,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So in Germany, we do not use that instrument very often, yeah. But of course, we need to have it because sometimes you have strange people who say, "Okay, I don't care about common interests," yeah, and therefore, okay, sometimes you need to use that instrument. But of course, it's not. If it's not necessary, it's much better. Okay. Now we have an allowance and can start with the construction. Yeah, this is the next step. How to do that? Not surprisingly, there are rules for that in German law. Yeah, and the landfill regulation says landfills and so on shall be constructed in such a way that the requirements of some other paragraphs regarding the site, the geological barrier, and the base sealing system are met. So we will not go into details, but I just wanted to show you that, of course, it must be clear where it is. You cannot build it somewhere, but exactly where it's allowed. And then you need a geological barrier, yeah, so that nothing can happen. And very important, base sealing. Yeah, so that not all the bad things can go into the earth and cause problems. Yeah, and depending on what it is, there are special requirements as well. Well, and finally, then sometime the construction is done, and so the commissioning can take place. And for this, Section 5 of the landfill regulation states the landfill operator may only commission the landfill or a section of the landfill once the competent authority has approved the facilities required for operation. Yeah, so even after you have finished your construction work, you cannot just start working and operating that, but the responsible authority has to have a look and if everything is done in the right way. Okay. After this has happened, we can start our operation, and again, not surprisingly, I think we have a lot of rules for that. Yeah, and they make sure that also by operating this structure, there should not be any dangers for nature or anyone. Yeah, so. And of course, in general, it has just to be made sure that nothing dangerous can happen. Yeah, but there are some more provisions which may be interesting for you. And the first one has to do with costs. Yeah, because operating such a landfill does cost money. Yeah, I mean, when you all know that, but when you go through the countryside and see a structure like this, you may think, okay, that's just waste, just put somewhere, yeah. But of course, you have to pay for that a lot. You have to maintain the structure. You have to pay people working there and making sure that everything is fine. And so this money has to come from somewhere. Yeah, and one possibility, of course, would be that the state or the municipality would be responsible just for paying. Yeah, but we decided another way, and our law says the fees charged by the operator under private law for the disposal of waste must cover all costs for the construction and operations of the landfill site, including the costs of securing a deposit to be provided by the operator within the meaning of the German Civil Code or an equivalent security measure to be provided, as well as the estimated costs for closure and aftercare for at least 30 years. And by this, you see, you need a lot of money. Yeah, and this has to be paid for by well, the people and companies and municipalities using that structure. So the disposal of waste in Germany is something quite expensive. Yeah. Okay. And of course, you need also the people working there, and in the landfill regulation, we have a special rule for this too. I mean, yeah, this should be clear anyway, but just to make sure, our legislator has said, just make a rule, and so no one can say afterwards, I didn't know. And so it states the landfill operator shall organize a landfill in such a way that, one, sufficient personnel with the necessary expertise and knowledge for their respective activities are available at all times to perform the tasks to be carried out. So people working there need to know what they do. Yeah, and this, of course, I mean, I suppose none of you would voluntarily work on a landfill, yeah, but someone has to do so. Yeah, and you have to make sure that those people who have that really not very nice jobs, yeah, nevertheless do them in a way which does not cause any problem. Yeah? So, and of course, accidents are avoided, and any consequences of accidents are limited. Yeah, of course, this belongs together. Yeah, but it is important, so it makes sure that the operation is safe. Okay. Also, we have a lot of information and documentation requirements for the operator. This is important because if there may be any problems later on, yeah, you do not know what is in the middle of this landfill, yeah, and just to dig onto this place would not be such a good idea. So there must be a lot of information just for the case that there may be problems. And also there's a rule for the implementation of waste disposal stating the competent authority may require the operator of a waste disposal facility to allow a party responsible for disposal pursuant to paragraph 15 and the public waste disposal authorities within the meaning of paragraph 20 to use the waste disposal facility for an appropriate fee insofar as they cannot dispose the waste in any other appropriate manner or can only do so at considerable additional cost, and the shared use is responsible for the operator. Yeah, so this is the situation where some municipality does not operate its own landfill, and then of course it needs an opportunity to get rid of the waste, and this makes it sure. What is relatively new in our law, but nevertheless important, is in waste. There's a lot of energy, yeah, and we had the idea maybe we can use that energy somehow at least, yeah, and in our energy law there are some provisions dealing with that. Yeah, so we are leaving now waste management law and turn shortly, at least, to the energy law and the use of use of the energy. And we have a system in Germany. Especially in our Renewable Energy Sources Act, that we want to promote renewable energy from wind power, solar power, and so on. And we subsidize companies with huge amount of monies to build and operate such structures. Yeah, and well, landfill gas. Yeah, so that strange stuff coming out of the landfill, yeah, which stinks and no one likes. Yeah, this is qualified as renewable energy. Yeah, I mean, this is a bit special, but of course it's there anyway. Yeah, and so if it comes out of the landfill anyway, you may at least try to use it, regardless of that it is not as friendly as solar power or wind power, but it's there, and so it would be a good idea to use it somehow. And there are in our Renewable Energies Act, there are some provisions dealing especially with those kinds of energetic use, and because when you try to use landfill gas for electricity production, it is quite expensive. Yeah, and therefore, if you just try to produce it and afterwards sell it on the electricity market, you will not be successful because it's just too expensive. Yeah, so the electricity produced is too expensive, and therefore the state gives some subsidies. So, and we in our EEG, the Renewable Energy Act, we have one provision stating for installations for generating electricity from hydropower and landfill gas and so on, the applicable volume is determined in sections 40 to 49, so it's accepted to be a part of this renewable energy system. And in section 41 of the EEG, it is said for electricity from landfill gas, the applicable volume shall be, number one, 7.46 cents per kilowatt hour up to and including a rated output of 500 kilowatts, and number two, up to and including a rated output of 5 megawatts, 5.17 cents per kilowatt hour. This is not so little. Yeah, so this should be enough to operate that facility in a way that you can really use that landfill gas for producing electricity. And there are some additional rules which we do not have to look at now. But there's also one rule in section 53 of the Renewable Energy Act stating the amount of the feed-in tariff entitlement is calculated on the basis of the applicable volumes, whereby the following shall be deducted from the applicable volumes. Number one, 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity from plants generating electricity from, for instance, landfill gas and so on. Yeah, so what you do not need to keep in mind all that numbers and things like that. That's totally boring for you. But I mean, what I try to explain to you is that we have a system in our energy law to make sure that the landfill gas can efficiently be used for producing electricity. Yeah, and so although in general you use landfills for waste you cannot use anymore, yeah, this is at least one use which is possible, and by rules like that it is make sure that it is attractive from a commercial point of view for the landfill operator. Yeah, so this of course is quite good. Now we return to waste law, because of course during the operation of that structure you need to make sure that nothing is happening. Therefore we have provisions for monitoring. Yeah, so you always know what's going on, and all this, they are not only addressed to the operator but also to the competent authorities. Yeah, so they have many rights to monitor what's going on, because I suppose it's the same here in Taiwan. companies do not want to admit that they have problems. Yeah, so probably as long as the landfill is not burning, yeah, they will not say anything. Even if they have serious problems, and of course this is not okay, and therefore we have also monitoring powers of the supervisory authority. Well, and finally, someday, many decades later, yeah, the landfill has to be closed. Yeah, it's full. Yeah, no more waste possible to put in there. And then, of course, you have to terminate the operation. And also for this, we have special rules. There are requirements for decommissioning. And what is very important, we have aftercare obligations. Yeah, so you cannot just say, okay, I stop operating this landfill and close the door and go away. Yeah, this won't work, but you have to make sure that also during the next decades nothing bad can happen. Yeah, and and here again we return to the energy use. One possible use, of course, is using former landfills as location for open space solar plants. Yeah, this is not very difficult because they are not very heavy, and but also I have seen there are also former landfills which are used for wind farms. Yeah, of course, in this case, you must make sure that the tower is not falling or something like that. Yeah, and and of course, you can combine that. Yeah, so I would say in our law altogether, you have seen we have many provisions. Yeah, starting from planning over. Permitting those structures, how to operate it, and finally how to terminate it. And by including the electricity production dimension into the landfill operation law, I think it is something which is a great success now, because earlier, you could not do anything with those landfills anymore. Yeah, they were just there, and that's it. Yeah. So today you can even after their use as a landfill, you can use them for producing energy. And you know, in Germany we try our big energy transition to get away from fossil energy, oil and gas and coal, and so we need a lot of space for our renewable energy structures. But as far as I remember, I talked about that last year here, so I'm sure you all remember. Okay, so thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for your presentation. And yes, 现在我们当然是可以开放大家提问了哈。我简单说明一下，就是说让老师也休息一下。就是说，其实大家可以看得出来，其实在德国来讲，其实非常特别，是他们在法律的面向、法律的层级，其实就有非常多详细的规定。那当然，这些详细的规定，如果大家有机会直接去读法条，会发现哇，那读起来其实非常的不容易因为它规定的非常细。可是当然，这也是造就了一个至少在法律面上会提供一个对德国来讲会有一个很稳定的，至少是一个制度、一个框架，让不管是人民或者是机关也好，都能够在这个框架底下去运行。这个是我自己也说明一下，就是说这是在德国法律上面一个非常有特殊的，应该 这么长的条文，这么长的条文，这个当然是不同的有他们的特色啦。那我们如何在学习的之外，也可以在我们的特色底下去解决问题。我觉得这个当然是我们最重要的目标。好，那我就简单说明一下，那这样开放看看有没有大家各位先进师长有没有想要提的问题，然后甚至当然如果可以用英文提问，当然这个是最方便，如果不行当然没关系，也可以帮忙做一个简单的翻译。好，那请看看有没有谁要说一下问题。
我可以用中文问帮我。
好，没问题。
是下午的座谈会，其实也想谈相关的问题。第一个是我看里面他刚刚讲到有这个联邦有废弃物的处理计划，
是。
在台湾里面也有废弃物的主管机关，
是。
所以假设要处理废弃物的问题，那这个废弃物的主管机关，特别是重要的主管机关，他怎么去定这些政策，可以让它做好处理？这个是最重要。我现在讲的是说，它里面有讲到说那个第4页里面有讲到说它的总产出量，应该是全国的总产出量可以拿来当做废弃物，好像只有10%，对不对？它控制呢要去掩埋的量
，2035年
，2035年就其实快到了，10年就快到了。所以他们等于是有这个主管机关做好计划，有政策去要求，假设都做完了，其实它就可以处理好，对不对？这个是第一个。那我想问的是说，在台湾好像没有这样的政策，而且好像有一个需要平行，各县市要合作，或者是中央要合作，所以我的问题是说，中央的法令的政策怎么去 push 或者是鼓励人家去合作啊？第一个是怎么去鼓励人家，有没有工具，有没有补助？就是废弃物的主管机关就做这个事情，有没有工具，有没有补助？它的政策，甚至我看到好像有个法律，怎么去鼓励人家去做跨域的合作？有什么样的方法可以促成合作？这是第一个问题。第二个是说，好像我们有废弃物的主管机关，然后他刚刚有讲到 regional planning 的许可。废弃物的主管机关跟土地的主管机关是只有审议的时候合作吗？我来审议，其实就是我们今天下午在谈的是说，假设要跨域合作，有没有土地使用主管机关可以帮上忙？刚刚有讲到最后一个，就是说，假设填完了以后可以再利用，对不对？可以做 open space， 做公园，或者是做那个风机，或是太阳光电厂。那在德国啦德国它的再利用方式里面有没有土地使用的机关？就是那个 regional planning 的那个 agency， 可不可以帮什么忙？就是恢复的时候，可不可以做更好的建设的利用？然后也许就可以鼓励人家来现在设，然后长期来看，其实它是有帮助。废弃物的主管机关跟土地的主管机关可以怎么样合作？在德国有没有什么样成功的经验？我觉得这2个问题，一个是废弃物主管机关它有什么工具可以 push 让它自己处理好；第二个是说，假设土地主管机关可以合作，那我们有什么样的合作方式？在德国有没有相关的案例经验？有点啰嗦了，但是我觉得这2个，因为下午要谈的是废弃物主管机关先管好嘛，只要他管好，我们就不需要特别伸出援手，只要帮忙审议就好。假设没有办法做的时候，可以怎么合作？那个李老师这样子。
我再要一个问题翻译一下。第一个问题
我来处理。
好，谢谢。
刚才老师有提到这个问题。First question is that you have mentioned the inter-municipal cooperation, the special purpose association for public law and corporation entities. So, under that system, how can the state government urge such cooperation to happen? Do they have any kind of legal authority or enforcement power to make cooperation possible? That's the first question.
Okay.
At the second.
One by one. It seemed to be very many questions, so let's
go one by one.
do it one by one. Yeah. Okay. Well, in general, those forms of intermunicipal cooperation are voluntary cooperations, but of course sometimes they become necessary because the municipalities just see that they are not able to fulfill their tasks alone. Yeah, but the opportunity of the state to force the municipalities are low. Yeah, they cannot do really much, but of course, when the state sees that a municipality is just not able to do what it should do, yeah, it would urge to work together with the neighbors, and usually this is not even necessary. Yeah, because those forms of intermunicipal cooperations are deep in the DNA of German municipalities, and so they are very happy to when they can work together, because for all of them it's usually easier. Yeah. So yes, usually this would be the way it is done.
Okay. The second part is you mentioned the waste management plan, but at the same time you say there was no requirement in regional development plans to prepare in advance for the siting. Okay, now it comes to the questions. In the planning, so the planning authority can only work with other entities in the approval process, and that's to him especially, he's from the national government, that's very passive. Because under our system, we do have some kind of authority to plan for the landfill site. So that was designated by the government, and that must be fulfilled by the government to make the landfill possible. But under your system, it's very passive. You can only wait. When someone apply for the projects, so you go to the planning process, and then you either approve it or disapprove it. So the planning authority, to that extent, is very limited. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no, because we have an idea of a quite high level of independence of the municipalities. Yeah, so this is a bit different from many other countries. I do not know, in fact, how it is here. Yeah, so our central governments, including the state governments, with regard to or in relation to the municipalities, do not have so many rights. Yeah, but all the local things, and this in general includes waste disposal, are to be decided on the local level. Yeah, and therefore, when you keep this in mind, our system is quite consequent, because otherwise, if the state could just say, okay, you have to do this on this place, yeah, this would cause constitutional problems, in fact. Yeah, de facto, of course, we have this waste management plan. Yeah, so the regional plan, the general regional planning, this is not a strong instrument in Germany anyway. Yeah, but the waste management plan, this is more important, and of course it can include some hints what to do. So the planning approval procedure, it's not the very first time that someone says, oh, by the way, in this place I would like to have a landfill. And of course, the development of Germany has started centuries ago. And so when you do plans today, nearly everything is already there. Yeah. So by planning, you cannot really change things, but you only can discover what is already there and where there might be spaces to put something new. And so I think I understand your question and the problem behind it. But for Germany, I would say it is not really a problem because nearly everything is already there, yeah, and the actors are in their roles and know how to play them, yeah, and so I cannot remember any real problems with the planning of landfills. Apart from that, of course, people on the local level say, I do not like it. Yeah, okay, that's, you cannot avoid that.
没有这个问题，不是因为已经发展100多年，所以换句话讲，就是说所有的角色大家都知道什么空间可以做什么，其实并不是一个，已经不是一个所谓的这个需要发现的事实。哪里适合做垃圾，谁在靠垃圾赚钱，什么等等，这些角色都有了，所以并不是说突然间今天才发现说垃圾问题要处理嘛，所以这种情况底下就被他们好像不容易有这种问题。
我大概可以补充一些观点，就是说，其实，在德国的法律制度底下，他们每个人、每个机关，甚至整个产业链里面，大家的角色定位都很清楚，很清楚。所以这个制度造就了大家在这个制度底下，大家会运作的比较不会有困难。说，该是你的就是你的，该我的就我。我可以靠这个赚钱，我可以靠这个，甚至可以看得出来，刚才是包括现在大到再生能源，大家也都很清楚知道，在这个制度底下，大家该怎么做。所以，但是一个在100多年来的这个框架底下，大家变得是很相信，也很信赖这个。但这个信赖不只是机关跟机关之间的信赖，还包括人民对这个制度的信赖。对，因为人民透过法律上的详细的，例如说刚才特别提到公民参与这样的一个制度，它虽然他有这个机会可以参与，那他当然就是前提是要你制度也知道，在这个参与的过程当中，我在法律上有什么样的权利，甚至法律刚才特别提到，如果你不及时的表达你的意见的话，你最后就叫你闭嘴，
失效，
就失权。我们法律上讲失权效，你就闭嘴了。甚至这个闭嘴的人不只是人民，连其他主管机关也都要跟着闭嘴。因为它已经有给你一个程序参与机制，是在法律里面规定的参与机制，你没有及时的在这个 procedure
还会有这个事后诸葛不诸葛的机制吗？比如说你们做规划核准的时候，上次农委会你都不讲话，现在突然间跑出来讲话，你可以否决他。对，我们没有这个机制。
但是它可以使用的工具可以，
还要找一个新的工具吧。
Ich lese nochmal eine Übersetzung vor, dann wird das vielleicht noch ein bisschen klarer.
发展出来的概念，我给你机会让你讲，你自己不讲，你现在事后跑出来讲，这当然是不会接受。
因为这个制度是写在法律里面的，不是说大家有点好像就是用一些传统去，所以这个是比较特别。
So, maybe to add is something we discussed before, so I'm sorry, I did not understand anything now, but to return, yeah, in the rules about those waste management plans, there is one section stating the waste management plans specify the areas suitable for landfills. Yeah, so they do not say it has to be put there. Yeah, but they say okay, in this area. Yeah, yeah. So there may be later on. Yeah, and so I think so. The state is of course not. As I said, the state is not saying okay, it has to be put there, but you can make sure that those landfills are not put just somewhere. Yeah, and as I said, the rest has to be decided on the local level.
就特别去补充刚才讲的那个有关于在他们的这个有点就是垃圾清除，这个垃圾的处理法里面特别提到，就是说这样的一个计划本来就要去挑选一个适合的地点，所以它变得就是说大概我也可以补充一下，就是说其实他们的分工是这样，它在垃圾清除这个法律里面有特别针对垃圾清除有一个计划，只是说他刚才教授提到那么多，我们讲行政程序法的计划是这个计划去补充，因为这个是等于是我自己是主管机关，我必须要定一个计划，只是这个计划怎么走，例如说怎么样去践行一些更详细，包括我们刚才提到施权效的这些规定，都要回去看有关行政程序法当中对于这个计划裁决的程序的一些规定，所以它有点特别法讲，因为特别法一定会有特别自己应该要做的计划，就包括这边今天特别提到垃圾清除，这个计划当然会因为这个特别法的事务特性，才会在这个特别法当中的计划要求你应该要讲什么事情，大概提到特别讲你要挑到适当的地点，这是主管机关垃圾清除主管机关，只是说这个过程怎么走，当然回去看行政程序法当中有关整体计划怎么做。但台湾，刚好昨天我有跟他聊到，就是我们台湾这个行政程序法有关行政计划的规定其实是比较单纯，我们在个别法律有很发达的各种计划，可是大家好像在这个是我不知道，但我不太确定实际上是大家很有自己的想法，自己对自己的计划有一定的想法。对，这个是就简单。
不，这样你觉得是不是应该事先指定垃圾场用地、那个掩埋场用地，可以做得到？
这个可能做不到，
做不到。
但是可以有一些指导的原则。
就是他讲的指导原则，可能是在哪一些地方适合。
指导原则，这个原则下去找。
所以我们过去划设垃圾场用地，这个是不适合的。
反而不适合在国土计划还没有，或者在地方政府的计划还没有。
可是我们过去
指定以后，反而把问题提早浮现出来。
到底要不要把它变成公共设施用地？
是可以啊，它本身性质就是公共设施啊，只是不是都市计划里面的公共设施，公共设施其实它是公共使用的性质没有问题。
公共使用。
对啊，公共使用。差不多了。
好，谢谢这个，其实我觉得很精彩的讨论了。那谢谢分组长，谢谢刘耀宏老师的补充跟这样的一个翻译了。那我们今天的上场就先到这边，然后就谢谢大家。
好，谢谢。